Hi, this is Dr. Dan Ratner. As part of our Mind-Body Connection series, we'll continue to look more deeply at the three columns and their corresponding action steps. Today, we're going to focus on how to understand both the defense and communication of mind-body experience. In the meantime, I wanted to let you know about my upcoming seminars. If you're interested in finding out more about them and what is involved, email me at dan@crushingdoubt.org and we'll send you the details. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below and I'll get back to you personally. Understanding what is happening to you in a mind-body situation is incredibly key for feeling confidence about getting better. This is no surprise coming from me on Crushing Doubt. Of course, getting rid of doubt is a way to feel confident about what it is that you're doing and how to get better. But as I mentioned in an earlier video, there are numerous seeming contradictions. Too much information in some areas, and in others, not enough at all. So for all of you out there trying to figure this out, I certainly understand why there's confusion, and in a way, the mind-body field is adding to your doubt, sometimes with too much information, sometimes with too little. And often it's just about organization. So that's a key point in terms of what I do, is organizing the process so that you know how to think about it. What I would say about what you're hearing out there is that a lot of people have a lot of very helpful aspects of things, or a percentage of things figured out. But because you're not getting the comprehensive picture, it can become hard to know what to do. So I find a comprehensive system that understands the broad global picture is the one that is more accurate, especially if it leaves no stone unturned in answering questions sufficiently. And this is why it's all about the questions. I had a video on it, asking questions being the reason that you can get answers, or the way that you can get answers. So today we're going to talk about the basic setup of the mind-body process and how it actually works. Some of the time we're going to get answers from asking questions. Other times I've figured something out, so I will just present it directly to you. Here's the thing. The antidote to doubt and fear is understanding. So, of course, you have to get new information. And of course, that's why you're out searching for new information. So what do we need to do about these contradictions? Well, they need to be understood. And in this area of the mind-body work, there is a contradiction. Here is a way of organizing it that can be helpful for you. The basic setup of the mind-body experience is actually just one real contradiction. And that is, it is a distraction and a communication. I've, of course, said that many times, but I want to highlight it again because it is the central contradiction that leads to all of these disparate experiences you have in terms of what people say. If people say you need to journal to get the emotions out, well, they're focusing on the distraction side of things. Or they may be focused on a communication element, but it's not well organized. And as a result, you're kind of just doing a particular thing without even knowing exactly why you're doing it. You need to know the background information so that you can understand how is this actually working. So you really don't need to know that much else about any other contradiction, because the other contradictions are all embedded and encompassed within this one. Sometimes people are talking about things as a distraction, the symptoms as a distraction from emotion. It's pretty infrequent, I find, that people are really talking about the communication. So sometimes, well, a lot of the times, the half of the equation, and I would say more of the equation, because I think it's more a communication than a distraction, is being left out. We also know with my columns work that a lot is getting left out because there's so much focus on emotions. Doubt and power are other aspects of the work, obviously. But as we think about how this mind-body defense and experience works, it'll be easier to understand what people are saying and what pieces of the puzzle they're getting that you can understand. Or you can come to me, and hopefully I will have a more comprehensive version of it. More than hopefully, that is definitely what my focus is. So what is a psychological defense? Let's just talk about that, because the mind-body experience is in part a psychological defense. I underline in part because it's not the only thing it is. A psychological defense is a process involving the unconscious mind where we hide from ourselves knowledge that is painful, upsetting, or uncomfortable. And it could even be a positive thing. You can be uncomfortable about a positive thing and hide it from yourself. So a psychological defense essentially puts information into the unconscious part of our brain so we can't access it consciously. Now, why is the mind-body defense such a dominant force in society these days? I wanted to outline a couple of reasons that has come to be. For one thing, it's the human condition to experience our feelings through our bodies anyway. So this quote-unquote defense is not just a defense. It's also our nature. It's how we are. The other defenses are not in our nature. It's not in our nature to deny things. It's something that we do to protect ourselves. It's not in our nature to project things onto others. This is something we figure out how to do because we're having a problem. The only part of psychological defenses that are built into human nature are repression, where we keep things out of our conscious awareness. That is built into our DNA to some degree. It's because it is a defense that's built into the brain. And it is the basis of all psychological defenses. And then there's the mind-body experience, which actually is even more the human condition. So anyone who says that if you discover everything in the unconscious, which of course you can't do, but even if you did, theoretically, you wouldn't have symptoms, that's not true. They're missing a key point that is written into our DNA, which is to have the body feel for us. It is a part of who we are. So it's not going to stop. You're not going to stop having symptoms altogether from the communication side of things. It's part of the human condition. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that you are doomed to have symptoms, because these are symptoms that can come and go very quickly. Once you get the communication, you don't actually have a lot of discomfort. But think about when you feel badly for someone. You feel that in your body. Your heart actually aches. That's where the term heartache comes from. It is real, and it's not all a defense. So we can't just talk about it as a distraction, because that's not true. It is also a communication of who we are. Most other defenses, here's another reason that the mind-body defense has, again, remember when I call it a defense, that's only part of what it actually is, so I'm kind of using it as shorthand. But most other defenses have come to be fairly well known in society because psychology has made good inroads into that, which is great. So some of them have really been dismantled. Denial, for example. Most people don't exist in a state of denial for very long. It's out there in society. It's talked about in shows. Many people go to therapy. They understand these things. So it's not a defense that works well anymore because it is known. One of the exceptions of this is, I was thinking this is an exception, but it really isn't. Projection is a defense that just isn't understood well. And it's also so nasty and effective in getting rid of feelings and hiding things. So it's just a very effective defense. And that's one of the reasons it has hung around. I would say it is the other main defense besides the mind-body defense that really is very dominant in society these days. Another reason the mind-body defense is really dominant is that even the field of psychology does not understand the mind-body defense at all. In fact, if you look at a list of defenses that your average psychologist would say if they are psychodynamically inclined, which is where the idea of psychological defenses comes from, they won't list a mind-body defense in there. It's not even recognized. The fact that it is not recognized is one of the reasons that it has proliferated so much. It's everywhere because it is allowed to be, because we don't know about it. Going along with that, people are not trauma-informed enough. So a lot of the therapy out there isn't really getting at what needs to happen. If you're not addressing the trauma, and remember, that can be like capital T trauma, where something horrific happened that anyone would recognize that way, or lowercase t trauma, where it really was traumatic, but it's because of your internal experience and how you process things, which is not to blame it on you. I have a lot of lowercase t trauma. I have some capital T trauma too. But if we were more trauma-informed, the mind-body defense the distraction part of it wouldn't be able to hide so easily. Here's another reason that it's such a dominant factor, even though it is the human condition. It's also a dominant factor going really far in terms of chronic pain. The defense is incredibly convincing. It is the most convincing defense that we can have. I mean, when you have physical pain, it grabs your attention more fully than the other ones. So it is the most powerful defense, on top of being a communication and the human condition. This is why it's so dominant. Society does not know about it at all. And in fact, it kind of reinforces the lack of awareness at every turn. We as a society, of course, I'm not including me in that, and probably not you, the listener, because you are onto what this is about. But the vast majority of society denies over 99% of all mind-body experience, and that's a conservative estimate. So this gives plenty of room for doubt to go around. Another reason this defense is so powerful and ever-present, symptoms are so easily manufactured in the body, and they're so easily convincing. The mind can do anything that the body can do. It can, send those peptides and give the commands to each cell to go ahead and do it. It's just a very easily accessible defense for the brain. And the more we fail to recognize the defense as a society, the more we end up using it. And that is why chronic pain has shot through the roof. We've really kind of begun to collude collectively as a society. I'm not talking about me and you, but everybody else that we're dealing with. They're kind of colluding, more than kind of, they're colluding unconsciously about it. So in my video on the unconscious, we talked about how the unconscious mind is perfectly comfortable with contradiction. As long as both things can be true, it doesn't matter if they happen at the same time to that part of the brain. So this is why symptoms are a communication and a distraction, and the mind has no problem with it whatsoever. Again, in the unconscious, there are no opposites. It doesn't care if it's confusing for you. In fact, it loves that you are confused, because then it can hide or communicate without committing to either one. That's the goal of the unconscious in this mind-body quote-unquote defense. It wants to do both at the same time. So what is it distracting from? Just as a review, this is like what Sarno said: painful emotional states, uncomfortable knowledge. That's the emotions column. That's what it's distracting from. And that is why the emotions column is useful, because we can expose what it is distracting from, that side of things. What is it communicating? It's communicating that it has empathy for you and it wants you to be powerful. That's the power column side of things. And what holds it together? The fuel of mind-body symptoms: doubt. This is why the columns make sense and organize the material. They each are playing a role. The emotions relate mostly to distraction, though there is some communication in it. The power column relates mostly to communication. And the doubt column relates to the glue that holds it all together and fuels everything. So, doubt is the mechanism by which the defense works. And that is why taking away all doubt is of crucial importance in getting better. Otherwise, there is fuel for this defense/communication to continue. So how do you dismantle the defense? First of all, anytime you're taking on any adversary, you need to know its motivation. So what is the motivation of the mind-body process? Well, it can't give up either side, because both sides are part of the agenda. So its agenda is to stay exactly as it is. If you resolve either side of the agenda, the defense isn't needed anymore. The one side can win out once you get rid of the other, and the symptoms won't need to be expressed, because the symptoms are expressing that contradiction. So essentially, we take away part or all of the function of the mind-body experience, and it can't function anymore. So the emotions column work takes away the distraction side of things. And when this is the dominant factor, this is why a symptom can vanish entirely when we expose its motivation to conscious thought. You take away its function and boom, it's gone instantly. Which, by the way, as an aside, is another reason why I do not believe in anything like the neural pathway argument where we say, oh, your body's going to be stuck in something. It is moment to moment. It changes instantly. If you get the right understanding, boom, you've got it. Now, if it's not going away quickly, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. What it usually means is no one has talked to you about doubt and power enough. Or maybe not at all. Probably not at all, actually, unless you've been watching me or talking to me. The power column takes away the communication side of things, because our empathic body that wants us to live our true narrative and not be stuck in the same experience anymore is now freed. And the motivation is no longer there to stick up for yourself with pain or other suffering. You can take away either side of this experience and you can get resolution. It's one of the reasons why you can work on any column and it's useful. You don't need to master them all, and it's fantastic because it allows different entry points for mastering this experience. The doubt column, of course, no surprise here, can also solve the problem. Because even if you don't resolve the distraction side or the communication side, if you take away the fuel the defense needs to operate, it can't work. So this is why we can often get better without knowing what the emotion was or without becoming powerful. These are both great things to be able to do, but if we want to, we can solve the problem just with doubt. We use science and logic to not doubt, and then there's no fuel with which the defense can work. So once again, I want to go back to a video I did a couple weeks ago about how questions lead to the answers. It was through asking the questions and thinking about the science and logic, the scientific and logical explanations, that I came to understand how does this, I don't even want to call it a defense, this experience work. How does the mind-body experience work? I got there through scientific and logical questions. One of the things that I really have come to see over time, and I kind of always thought this, but I had to put it into words for myself, is that partially correct theories are really not a whole lot better than completely failed theories. An 80% right theory is not that much better than a 20% right theory, or even a 0% right theory, because it still leads us down the wrong path without full understanding, and that means doubt can still be there. We need 100% right theories, and that is why I'm constantly thinking about this and honing it to get it more and more correct. Whenever there's a problem with it, it's a big problem. I have to go back and figure out, why does that not fit? And I don't try to wedge it into my theory. I'll alter the entire theory based on something that is a very real part of the problem that I haven't factored in. So by asking, why doesn't it always go away when we resolve emotions, we get an answer. And the answer is, it must not be all about emotions. If it was, it would always go away. So I love Sarno, but if what he said is true entirely, then it would work for everybody all the time. So this leads us to the next question. What is it about? By asking why accepting the diagnosis leads to relief, we find out why doubt is so important. It keeps the defense active and functional. So when doubt exists, people simply do not get better enough for mind-body issues because the fuel is there. And it, not only that, the fuel is there, but it also doesn't allow us to resolve either the distraction or the communication side of things. Doubt is the linchpin of it all. So it's simple, really. Ask the question, and the obvious answer is what actually applies. This is how I came to my ideas about the columns. It really was mostly from logic. Science certainly helped, but logic was the main one. So how about this one? If we are seeing people become powerful after they resolve the mind-body issues, doesn't it follow that this was part of the goal all along? It can't be that everybody has this same experience happen. It can't be so consistent across so many people without power at least having something to do with the picture. That's how I came to understand that column. To get better, we have to understand what is happening in each aspect of the mind-body experience. And in the case of what we talked about today, I hope you got a clear, broad, and simple view of what is happening in that psychological experience/defense mechanism that drives the process. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I'll get back to you personally.